All right, welcome back. This is Roto RX. I'm Andy Singleton. People spend on Twitter. Over on the other side over there is Tehol Beddict, Lord Beddict on Twitter. The Raisel hero, the guru, the guy you want to get all your info and entertainment and fashion tips from. So let's just move right into this. Is episode 11. Let's just move right into it. We are here to try to help you sort through your fantasy baseball season. Now, as an owner, you should have several sources and then make whatever logical decision you feel necessary for your team based on your league, the settings for your league, your team construction, the type of league you're in, available players in your league, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully we can be a show that's on your short list that you'll come to like and trust and love us as some other people seem to be doing. We keep getting comments, people saying they love the show. I think they're embellishing and exaggerating a little, but I will take it. Have you seen these comments?
Yes, I know these guys very well, not in person, but through Twitter, and I know them to be very stand-up guys. I could tell they're great men in their communities and their families and in fantasy baseball. And if they say they love the show, they mean it wholeheartedly, and that's all that needs to be said. No doubt about it. Love them.
So there's no sarcasm there. All right. I'm even more pleased now than ever. So we got some great questions this week, two specifically that are really good that I'm going to read a little bit later on in the show. We're going to try to fly through this. I'm going to try to do something we've never done before and keep the show to under a half hour. So we will try to just get to the nuts and bolts and try not to drift too far. Real quick, I want to say thanks again to Raisel, to Reddit, to Fantasy Assembly, to any of our friends in the industry showing us some love. And
why do we think of Raisel? What are they doing for us?
Well, you're from Raisel, so I kind of got to give.
You need to thank them. They don't want to put this on there. Don't thank them. They can watch this.
You're like on loan.
They can watch this and they can say, "Damn, maybe we should put this on our website."
Well, that comes from your end.
These.
I will say you're like on loan. I haven't, come up with this funds. Maybe I should crowdsource this to buy you out of your contract with Raisel, but we'll see. Maybe. Let's see how many subscribers and views and stuff we can get from these.
A pack of cigarettes and a bottle of Jack Daniels.
Well, I don't know if this is a good transition, but I do want to start right off the bat with what broke last night, another heavyweight bout in Major League Baseball. We saw Rougned Odor throw a haymaker a couple weeks ago. Last night we witnessed Yordano Ventura peg Manny Machado, and it was on. So I want to ask you, who's got the better right cross between Odor and Machado? And just to kind of pay some respects to somebody we just lost, would either of them stand a chance against Kimbo Slice?
Oh man, I think Odor easily had the cleaner punch, no doubt about it. I think that might be the cleanest punch in baseball history. Quite honestly, we really jacked him up there. Yordano definitely got hit with kind of the right roundhouse. I'm not sure if it was kind of the angle, the step he was taking, and kind of just the force of getting like pushed back. I'd like to see his face because if he fully connected with his blow like that, it would have probably cracked his cheekbone or at least his eye. His face would be real swelled up. So it'd be real interesting to see that. Though I did see Yordano. He didn't just take it and get dropped. He came with the little tackle. He recovered and tackled, took him down like a little dude should. So, I don't think he really got embarrassed by it. To a degree, kind of lost his footing, got taken down. But Kimbo Slice, man, R.I.P. But to keep it real with you guys, Kimbo Slice would feast on these guys in 2-on-1 death match. It would be like kind of like Rosie O'Donnell at Ruby Tuesday's Rib Fest or something, just killing it, dude, killing it. Wouldn't even be. He'd take them both. I would never. Kimbo Slice is one of the last people on earth I'd want to be in a prison cell with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I know there's obviously a weight difference, and that kind of is what it looked like with Ventura. You're giving him credit for saying he lost his footing a little. It just looked like he was extremely, extremely light in the shorts and basically just got tossed by Machado like a rag doll. Needless to say, this is not something new for Ventura, and I remember people asking me last season, like, when does this catch up to him? And I said last year I kind of liked the fire and the tenacity, but it seems to be getting a little played out, for me at least. Do you have anything you want to say towards that end? I mean, I still like him as a pitcher. I think I want that guy on my team. I want the guy who's not afraid to do that on my team. But enough is enough already. I mean, it seemed a little unnecessary.
Yeah, again, I don't have a problem with Yordano Ventura. I like Yordano Ventura. I could care less about him throwing at these. What I care about is that every year I think this guy's going to be, take a next step and is a very high upside type of pitcher, which is the kind of guys I like. And every year he disappoints me. The velocity is a little down this year, and he's not even striking dudes out at any kind of rate whatsoever. I'm confused. He still throws I think he was hit 97, 90 a couple times. Like, I mean, where are the strikeouts, dude? He hasn't even walked a guy in 2 of his last 3 starts. And it's just like, it's just disturbing to me that you could see this start coming a mile away. This is the first time I start everybody in my fantasy leagues. He's the first person I ever bench in an early week starting pitcher of mine, just in that game against Baltimore. It's just like, you knew he's going to get rocked. I got no faith in him, and he gets lucky. And the games he hasn't gotten destroyed in have basically he's just been lucky, basically. Double play here, double play there, a couple just nobody. I mean, it's gross, dude. I don't know. I finally dropped him, man. I can't take it anymore.
Wow. You dropped Yordano. I'm ashamed to hear that. Well, we're going to move on, and we will talk about a bunch of young arms. That was actually one of the direct questions we got, young arms. We're going to talk about promising guys as well. Speaking of promising, one guy I wanted to get into is Jameson Taillon, who's making his major league debut today at the Mets. He's facing Noah Syndergaard. I will be the first to say I was wrong. I'll eat crow on this. I'm completely surprised. I thought Tyler Glasnow was going to beat Taillon to the pros. You can make the case for either, to be quite frank. They both have the same ERA, AAA this year. Glasnow actually has better K rate, better numbers in that regard. Taillon hasn't really walked anybody all year, so his control might be a little bit better. He is also two years older than Glasnow, but Taillon's here. I'm completely surprised. Like I said, he had 2 years off with a couple injuries, including Tommy John surgery. So we'll see what he's got. He's been lights out, and he's made the push to get to this point. So if you can grab him, grab and hold. You on the Taillon bandwagon yet? I know you're a bandwagon guy.
Definitely. I'm a bandwagon on all the young star pitchers coming up. I mean, 2010 it was. He was the second overall pick. I mean, this is nuts, man. I'm just happy that he's back in the game. Gives me hope for the Mariners. Danny Holtzen, who they took over Trevor Bauer, who just mowed us down the other day in Seattle. But Holtzen, I don't think will ever pitch again. But if this guy can do it, maybe he can too. The only thing is that I think Taillon is much more talented than Danny Holtzen ever was, and that was a horrible pick. But Taillon, he missed the last 2 seasons or something? I mean, he's only 24, but he's drafted, 6, 8 years ago. I mean, this is incredible, man. I'm rooting for the guy. He's been great. He's been really good, and I don't think he's going to have a problem. I think he's going to have no problem mowing down that soft-ass Mets lineup.
Yeah, I was going to get into that in a little bit when we talk about David Wright's injury. The Mets really are kind of falling off, but we'll get into that in a minute. I actually wanted to lead off the show with Jurickson Profar, who we're going to get into now, switching from Taillon, who was another extremely high prospect. He, at one point, was arguably the number 1 consensus overall prospect in the entire minor leagues, and kind of hit a stumbling block with some injuries, and then kind of got passed by Odor on the depth chart. Now he got his call due to the suspension we were, referring earlier with Odor, and he has collected multiple hits in 8 out of a possible 11 games to this point. They are working him at first base even now because Prince Field has been just god-awful, and they're trying to keep Profar's bat in the lineup. So you're getting first base, second base, and even some leagues you might get shortstop eligibility out of Profar. I'm all in. I mean, what's not to like about this guy? Everybody seemed to forget about him. Once he, got hung up with the injuries, got off to a slow start when he finally did get his chance, beginning of last year. This guy didn't really go anywhere. This guy is still a stud. So what's your take with Profar? You all in?
I'd like to quote the great Roy Jones Jr. in his first entree into rap music, and it's like, y'all must have forgot the big smash hit Roy Jones Jr. dropped on us back in the day. I hope you got to Google that, YouTube. That is a big hit. But y'all must have forgot about Profar, man. I never did, because I'm a real one, so I never forgot about the legend. And I've been wondering, every year I pick this guy up, every year I draft this guy, and then he has a surgery and it's all bad, and he's missed the last 2 years for the shoulder. But let's be real, this guy's the best prospect in baseball, and it looks like he never left. I'd like to see a couple more steals, but other than that, multi-hit game in every single game he's been up so far except one, and he had a triple in that game. He's killing it right now. Prince Fielder's been – I still think Prince Fielder's going to come back. I think I'm the only one who still thinks that, but so it's going to be kind of difficult finding Profar at bats. But I say Mitch Moreland, dude, trade his ass now while you still can. I mean, you got Gallo coming up anyway. They'd love to get rid of Elvis Andrus. I'm sure they'd trade that guy for a bag of Lay's and a pack of Newports, dude. I mean, get this guy off the squad. That contract is disgusting. I'd love to see Profar, Odor, second base, shortstop combo. The whole world needs to see that. I'm ready. The world's ready. He's not going anywhere until he gets cold, and then he might get something.
That was quite a take. I completely forgot about y'all must have forgot, and I'm glad I did. So I'm a little upset with you for reminding me that Roy Jones actually did try to rap at one point. One guy that some people might have forgotten about because he really hadn't done much until the last week or so is Zach Davies. I had him in a bunch of dynasty leagues, had him stashed away, hadn't called him up yet. He hadn't really been impressive. He didn't really follow up on how he ended the 2015 season. But all of a sudden, in 2 June starts, he's got 15 innings, 14 strikeouts, a 1.20 ERA, and a 0.53 whip. So the downside is he plays for Milwaukee, and as evidenced by his start last night, they may not be able to hold games for him, as they almost blew his start last night. However, I will say he's not a dominant pitcher, but he's crafty, and he knows how to get the job done. And those guys have a place on your roster. So, Zach Davies, you buying or selling?
First off, I'd like to shout him out because I just discovered he's from Puyallup, Washington, which is just a very right next door to my hood of Lakewood, Washington. I didn't even know that. Normally, I would know all the kind of big-time guys from around here, but this guy's so that's kind of a big deal. That's kind of cool to see. But am I buying him? No. The Ks per 9 have always been, softer than Roseanne's. I mean, this guy's got the K potential is just not really anything exciting. This guy's 160 pounds, soaking wet. It's like Snoop Dogg if he was 8 inches shorter and white. 160 pounds. I haven't weighed 160 pounds since I was in 7th grade, bro. This is disturbing to me. Get this guy a protein shake and an apple and get him out in the yard, man. Maybe he needs to go to prison for a year or something. Beef up. This is disgusting. Come on, man. But no, I'm not buying him in fantasy at all. No.
Well, I'm buying. I was big on him having a nice season and kind of in the sleeper fashion. And like I said, he got off to a slow start and he's starting to pick things up. And he is from a stone's throw away from the Lord. So buy this man a protein shake and put him on your roster. From my Let's bring in the doctor. Let's bring in Selene Parekh, MD, Doc Fantasy.
For who?
Well, go to video 1.
Okay.
Video 2, sorry. I was mentioning the Mets and David Wright and how they are really in dire straits right now. Duda's already been out for a while. They got James Loney playing first now. David Wright again.
Oh, wait till you see the doctor. Oh, my God. This is great.
Hey guys, it is sweltering hot here in North Carolina and even hotter in my car because I got to have the AC down. But I'm committed to you guys and I'm going to give you the lowdown on David Wright. David Wright, third baseman for the Mets, has a herniated disc in his C-spine. Now, if you look at the cervical spine, there are 7 vertebral bodies that make up the cervical spine. And together with the vertebral discs, they allow you to turn and rotate and pivot your head. The vertebral discs act like shock absorbers between the bones themselves. And they allow, again, for cushioning and to prevent those bones from pounding on each other. Now, he has a herniated disc where the disc is pushing on one of the nerves that supplies his arm. That causes pain, weakness, and even can cause sensational issues. He's tried injections, he's tried steroids, and he's even tried anti-inflammatories, and none of that seems to be helping. So he's on the disabled list, and they're hoping that with rest, some more anti-inflammatories, some rehabilitation, that he'll get better. But if his symptoms continue, he continues to have neurologic symptoms, look for him to be out for the 2016 season. He'll have surgery where they'll try to decompress the nerves and take the disc off the nerve. This is Dr. Selene Parekh, the Fantasy Doctor.
Big Daddy.
Yeah, this is like one too many blows for the Mets and Captain America at that. So it looks like Iron Man won the Civil War. Don't forget David Wright is Captain America, captain of Team USA. No, was that lost on you? Yeah.
I thought he was more like Mr. Glass from the movie with Bruce Willis and M. Night Shyamalan, great producer.
Yes.
As in, he's in every second of life. So he needs to retire. He needs to retire right now. Dr. Selene Parekh, dedicated, looking fly as hell in the benzo with the shades and the hat, looking real stuntastic. But yeah, David Wright's finished, and there's nothing else to pay attention to. He probably should have retired for this year. It's a sad career. It's a sad blow. The guy was a potential Hall of Famer if he stayed healthy his whole career, and it's over now.
Well, I mentioned the Mets are kind of, in a bad place right now. Missing both corner infielders, Conforto's tanking, and I would look for them to make a move from outside the organization. They don't really have much to bring up at this point. So stay tuned for a Mets possible move. But Matt Shoemaker, not the candlestick maker, the Shoemaker, has kind of turned his season around, and he is dealing. Even his last loss at the Yankees, it was good enough to give you hope that this turnaround is in fact real. He didn't get the win or even the quality start. He gave up 4 runs, but he did go 7 2/3, only threw 93 pitches, and still struck out 6 while walking none. So even with that poor outing, I think it's just one poor outing in his last 4 or 5 starts. It was, like I said, it was still enough to give you hope that this is for real. So if you were able to get him in the last week or so, if there's any reason he's still lingering or somebody's trying to pawn him off on you thinking they're selling high, I still think it's a good move to try to add him at this point. I know you're a AL West guy, so what's your first-hand take on Shoemaker?
You know what? I like what I see, but I mean, he's about 30 years old. I think he's 29. The K upside is cool. I mean, for me, he's still going to be kind of a matchup play. I mean, well, he's hot like this. I'm probably starting to be just about anyone. If I could speak more eloquently, that would be great. I'm stuttering over here like a loser. But yeah, he's an interesting guy, man. I'm still not like heavily buying or trading for, and I don't know what I would trade for him. But I mean, if you can go get him real quick, feel free to do so. And ride that out until he falls off like a bad bag of dope and pick up the next guy.
Well, to give you some reference, in one of my dynasty leagues, pitching heavy league, I was offered Shoemaker for Jacob Lamb, who is like my third baseman, using him at utility. Love the kid, and I turned that down. And I'm in need of a pitcher, having guys like De La Rosa and Boxberger hit the DL. And I still wasn't enough for me to add Shoemaker and give up Lamb. However, like I said, I have added him a bunch of other leagues. So let me ask you directly then. You didn't want to add Davies because of the K upside, but you do like Shoemaker's strikeout ability. So between the two, you'd be gambling on Shoemaker? Okay, I would have to agree. I would have to agree. Well, one starter that is now being moved back to the bullpen, where he actually began his career back in Cuba, is Raisel Iglesias, who was shelved over the last couple of weeks because of arm fatigue, and now the Reds are saying they are going to put him back in the bullpen to preserve his arm. Are you buying his role long-term as a reliever, or do you think this is a short stint and he gets back into the starting rotation? I initially said I thought this was, just kind of the company, line for the moment, and that he would eventually be back in the bullpen another week or two. Back in the rotation another week or two. But the more I look into it, the more I'm starting to think that this might actually have some legitimacy to it. They lost Chapman. They don't really have anybody at the back end. He was a reliever to begin his career. He has, in 23 career starts, gone more than 6 innings, only 5 times. Like, this isn't a guy that's getting deep into games to begin with. So I'm kind of thinking they might be telling the truth here.
Yeah, like everything you just said, I mean, this guy, everything is tailor-made here for him to remain as a reliever for his career. I always love when they try to turn in these flamethrowers into actual starters. It just never seems to work out. You mentioned the Chapman thing. That was always more on Chapman. He got comfortable and didn't want to go do that. I mean, I'm really curious to see what would have occurred if he became a starter. I would love to see that because, I mean, the closers or relievers, you just don't get as much, not as valuable, in my opinion, not even close. So I would have liked to see it, but as you mentioned, he's not going deep into games. He's got shoulder stuff, plus their bullpen is straight gutter trash. I mean, the Ks per 9 got me wetter than a koala bear at a eucalyptus buffet. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's nasty with it. I want to see this guy in action. Singrani's dog excrement. Woods back there, and Ohlendorf. I mean, get out of here with these bumps. Singrani's. I mean, this guy literally is blowing like 50% of the set. I mean, it's disgusting, dude. I mean, they got to put somebody in there. So if you're real desperate for closers or keeping on the lookout for new guys, I mean, I feel like it should only be a matter of time before this guy is the closer for this season. I mean, the rest of these guys are absolute trash.
Yeah, I want to point out also, like, a lot of people think because we haven't seen Iglesias for that long that he's still relatively young. He's already 26. So if we're calling Taillon old or oldish at 24, this guy's 2 years older already. So just, bear that in mind as well. Let's go back to your neck of the woods. And I just got to say, you frequent a lot of buffets.
Yeah.
You rep
buffet
expert.
Yes.
I've never been to a eucalyptus buffet, but I'm intrigued now.
Very nutritious and good for your skin. Right.
Is that because of all the rain in Seattle? You have eucalyptus growth?
I have mine delivered from Australia weekly, fresh.
Okay. Well, sticking with Seattle, James Paxton is back. I want to know from you, Mr. Mariner, if you are still on the Mariner bandwagon today, who is the real James Paxton? This guy has 17 Ks in 9 2/3 innings.
Woo!
But he's also given up 15 hits and 11 runs in the same amount of time. So the guy throws strikes. Does he do anything else? Is he just throwing a faster version of batting practice?
Again, do we have to quote Roy Jones Jr. again? Y'all must have forgot. I mean, a couple years ago, this guy was a stallion. This guy was looking better than Taijuan Walker. This guy was looking like a legitimate stud. He's the rare left-hand lefty who goes 100, that can go up to 100 miles an hour. I mean, this guy's throwing straight gas. It's just unfortunate because he's in there right now with Felix. But, I mean, Wade Miley's been absolutely terrible, but it was great in his last start. But, I mean, he's getting paid pretty well. Carnes has been really good. And it's like you can't really take Ty Walker, Felix, or Iwakuma, even though none of them are pitching great. You can't really send one of those guys down. There's nothing you can really do with those guys unless you want to just designate DFA Miley. I mean, he just had his best start. There's not really a spot for Paxton right now. He gets one more start here with Felix taking a little bit longer than expected. But he's the real deal, man. If he's got to be owned in fantasy when he's starting. I mean, the dude has the potential for double-digit Ks every time out. He only gave up the one earned run last time. He needs to be owned in all fantasy formats when he's in the rotation. So he's already 28, so he's not crazy young, but he's definitely a very high upside guy. Again, he's a lefty that can throw 100 miles an hour. So, like, get on the train.
So you're not concerned with any control issues or anything at all like that?
I have zero concerns.
Okay. It just seems and feels like there have been about 50 Mariners pitchers that we were all supposed to buy in on over the last decade, from Roenis Elias to Erasmo Ramirez to Brandon Moore to, as you mentioned, Paxton and Holton and Walker, and the list just goes on and on and on. Anyway, let's bring the doctor back, another AL West youngster, Nick Tropeano. has now hit the DL. What's going on there? Because he was starting to look like he was turning the corner on his season.
Nick Tropeano is having shoulder issues. Now, whenever you hear shoulder, you think rotator cuff, and you think bad things. He's complaining of stiffness, he's complaining of tightness, but his MRI revealed no structural damage, and that's great news. So what this likely is just inflammation and irritation of the joint, maybe the rotator cuff, and with some rest, anti-inflammatories, maybe a little bit of a steroid injection, he should be okay. Look for the trainers and the physical therapist to really work with him on throwing mechanics. He'll have a lot of performance training, but I look for him to be back within 2 weeks, 4 weeks max, and this should not be a big issue moving forward.
Good news. Thank you, Doc. Little known fact and possible hint or hopeful. We might get Nick Tropeano on the show in the future. Yes, one of my colleagues who plays in a league I commission, when we were discussing a Tropeano trade, told me I used to date his older sister. Tropeano, of course, is from Long Island over here in New York. And I said, well, contact her. I don't care what you got to do. Get to him and get him on Roto RX with myself and the Lord. So
Tell him to
cross your fingers, and maybe we'll make that happen. Let's do a back-to-back with the doctor since we got such good news on Tropeano. Let's go to his report on Yasiel Puig. What's that?
So play that Drake back-to-back. Okay, what video is that? One?
Should be video 4. We're going to go with Puig and Pence. Both are out with hamstring injuries. Is there a difference? Is one more severe than the other? How does this affect you? I see Puig being dropped in a lot of leagues.
Hamstring injuries seem to be the injury of the week. Yasiel Puig is still trying to get back from his hamstring injury, and Hunter Pence is having surgery for his hamstring injury. So you may wonder, well, what's the difference? What's going on here? Well, a hamstring are a group of muscles that sit behind your thigh muscle, and they help the hip extend and the knee flex. And injury to any of those typically happen kind of at the muscle tendon junction, and more rarely where the muscle attaches to the pelvis bone. And that's really the more common type that Yasiel Puig is dealing with. Depending on the grade of the strain that you have, you can be out for 2 to 6 weeks, and at this point for him, it's a day-to-day scenario where he may get back into the lineup at any point in time. Hunter Pence is a totally different situation. He actually injured the attachment site of the hamstring muscle into the bone of the shin bone, and that's a bigger deal. And so that's why he's going to have surgery, because the bone is going to be taken out, the tendon part is going to be taken out, and the muscle that attaches to that bone is going to be reattached to one of the other muscles so that those two muscles can react together. That needs time to heal, and he's going to need time to rebuild muscle, rebuild power, and rebuild his quickness. So 6 to 8 weeks is the timeline. It could be even up to 10 weeks. It's a rare injury, but it can happen, and it requires surgery. This is Dr. Selene Parekh, the Fantasy Doctor.
So, what does that tell you for both guys? Are you frightened? Because these are two big names we're dealing with, Pence and Puig.
Yeah, I don't own either of them anywhere. I'm a big Puig fan. The only time I owned Hunter Pence was his rookie year. I'll never forget when he came up. It was legendary. It doesn't seem like he ever became a better player than he was at that point. He's still a really good player. It just doesn't seem to me like he ever improved upon what he was originally, which is a really good player. I was just kind of disappointed he never became a full-on superstar, in my opinion. But he's a cool dude. Puig is just a disgrace right now. I mean, everything. This guy's just a loser, man. I'm cutting him.
All right. Yeah, like I said, I've seen that going around a lot. I can't blame you if you do it. I don't know. I just don't want to give up on him yet. But that's just me. I really only own him one place. So we are off schedule for a half hour with the few names I have left that I wanted to go over. But we can get back on track if we blaze through these, if we Michael Blazek through these. He's not going to be mentioned, but cheap shot. Christian Friedrich. Friedrich. I don't even know how you pronounce that. Do you know? All I know is I think his family also makes air conditioners, because I see a lot of Friedrich AC units here in the streets in New York. Maybe getting out of Colorado was key for him, but I personally am passing. I know he's looked kind of decent the last couple starts. If you're streaming or scouring the waiver wire for a pitcher, in or out. Chase or replace. Maybe we'll bring back Chase or replace.
I don't chase them, I replace them. I don't chase them, I duck them. I replace them with another one.
His former first-round pick, Ks per 9 are not impressive at all. The whip is atrocious, 1.57. He's just been lucky. He's just unlucky, unownable, and very unownable.
Moving on. Eduardo Nunez. Chase or replace?
Chase for the time being, man. I mean, he's killing it right now. 362 BAPIP. Remember that? I just don't think it lasts. He's never had flash power before. I think he had like 5. No, that was somebody else. But no, he's just never shown this kind of power before. So Chase for now, and then look to replace later.
Yeah, I'm not buying the power. I'm kind of buying the average. I mean, not where it currently is, but that he could flirt with 300. He's been consistent all season. He's been a decent hitter in the past. He plays everywhere on the diamond. If you got room and you got a need at pretty much any position, add him. And I subsequently don't think anybody could forget BAPIP, thanks to you. Brandon Drury, are you ready to forget him? You chasing him? You replacing him? He's kind of slumped over the last 2 or so weeks.
I'm definitely not taking it, I mean, unless you're super desperate at shortstop. I mean, he's got 8 homers, but somehow he only has 19 runs and 18 RBIs. Like, how is that even possible at this point in the season, especially when your home run total is half of those numbers? I mean, that's kind of disturbing. That's phony, and that's fake, and that's the type of people I hate. It's just he had a combined 5 homers last year in AA and AAA in like 130 games. 5. So, no, I'm not chasing this bum.
Okay. Michael Conforto. It pains me to have to mention this. I mean, you live and you die with some of your players, and Conforto falls into that category for me. It literally seems like it was days or hours ago. Like everybody in Fantasy World was talking about him. He was going to win a batting title in the NL, well, other than Daniel Murphy being there. And now he's completely tanked. He hit 365 in April, May, and so far through June, it's down to 130. So what are you doing with Conforto? I think it's too early to give up on him. I think he's just too good of a player. I think he'll figure it out. But, I mean, he's putting up numbers at the risk of getting sent back to the minors at this point. That's how bad it's been. And the outfield has already got a glut with Lagares playing well again. So what do you do with this guy? You dropping him? You trying to trade him? You holding him?
I certainly am not dropping him. As you mentioned, the 130 average the last 7 days, which is basically just all of June. Started with a spark. Now he's just garbage, man. But I'm still holding him. Maybe he's just not that good. Maybe his numbers are plummeting faster than our viewership for a reason. I'm not sure what's going on with the dude, man. I don't know what's going on with him. But you got to hold him for right now and see if he catches fire. I still respect him.
You made me dribble by saying that. Thank you. I disagree. I think the stroke is there. The swing is there. He's a gap hitter. He's not a power hitter. He's a gap hitter. He'll find his groove. Again, keep him. Jhonny Peralta, he's back. I was personally not high on him. He had a career year last year. He's a year older. He's large for a shortstop. And I just, coming off his injury, the ligament damage, all that kind of stuff, I just didn't think, he was going to do anything close to what he did last year. And just as I was scared off of him, he goes out and he puts up 2 doubles and 2 RBIs in his first game back. He's going to be playing third base, it looks like, and as the Cardinals do some shifting in their infield. So now I'm really kind of confused as to what to do with Jhonny Peralta. I'm hoping you have some direction to steer me on with Johnny, J-H, Johnny.
I don't really have a direction to steer you. All I know is this guy's one of the better offensive shortstops in the game of baseball. Perfect timing with Diaz falling apart like we all knew he would after the crazy hot start. Nobody knows who that guy is. Nobody probably will ever know who he is again. It's a wrap. He's done. Bring in Peralta. Bring in the bat. I like the Cardinals lineup right now. Matt Adams is hitting. Some of these other guys are hitting. It's a nice mix and matching, platooning, and everything, and he'll fit in nicely there. And I think if you're desperate at shortstop, you mentioned a guy like Drury earlier. I'll take Peralta over bums like that all day.
How far will you go to get Jhonny Peralta, though?
Not far. out, open my door to grab like the newspaper. Like I'm not going to go down to the street, but if it's outside my door, I might grab it.
So you wouldn't even pick him up from the train station if it was raining. See where you get it.
Oh, no.
All right. Well, if you had June in the Mark Teixiera injury pool, congratulations. You won. We're going to bring in the doctor right now. We're going to see what's going on with Teixiera. If you haven't learned by now, if you want to use Teixiera as your first baseman, you have to have a backup in place. This guy cannot play a full season anymore. Doesn't matter what kind of diet he's on, gluten-free, doesn't matter. This guy cannot make it through an entire 162 games season.
Hey guys, Dr. Selene Parekh, the Fantasy Doctor here. Mark Teixiera has torn cartilage in his knee. Now this is a big deal because cartilage in your knee comes in two different forms. It can come in the form of what's known as meniscus, which are cartilage discs that sit as shock absorbers between the bones of the knee, but it can also come as cartilage that lines the joint itself. And it appears for Mark Teixiera, he has damaged the cartilage that lines the joint. Now that's a big deal because it doesn't heal on its own typically. Now, the plan for the Yanks right now is to give him about 3 to 4 weeks, let him rest, maybe do some steroid injections, or even PRP, also known as platelet-rich plasma injections, into the knee to try to get it to heal. But if it continues to lock on him, continues to be painful, look for him to be out for the season, have what's known as microfracture surgery, where the surgeons will go in, clean up that cartilage, get to the bare bone, drill holes into the bone, and try to get dense scar tissue to heal into the bone. If that happens, he's out for the season, and he's done. But we'll have to see how the next 3 to 4 weeks goes. When he comes back, look for the Yanks to kind of nurture him along, take it nice and slow, but also look for Teixiera to be very mindful of this. If, again, he gets any pain, any catching, or any issues with that knee, look for him to be out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so that's not great. Greg Bird is not there as an option this season for the Yankees or for your fantasy teams. Robert Refsnyder has been called up, and he's manning first at the moment. I don't think long-term he's the solution there. So I would expect some shifting to happen with the Yankees as well. But as I mentioned, if you had June in the Teixiera injury pool, you won. There's nothing really more to say about that. We knew this was coming. It was just a matter of when. So let's start to wrap things up. We're close. We didn't hit our mark. We're a little over, but this will be one of the shorter shows. So we have trimmed the fat. We have trimmed the time down a little. Hopefully you're still enjoying this. Albert Almora, the Cubs have an embarrassment of riches in the minor leagues. It's insane what they have as far as everyday hitters go, from outfielders to infielders. It's just insane what they have. Albert Almora would be the top prospect in most organizations, and he's like an afterthought with the Cubs. He got called up finally. I don't know how he manages to get consistent playing time, especially with the moves they made to bring in Zobrist, to bring in what's his name, Hayward, to bring in to re-sign Fowler. You got Soler you're trying to give time to. Bryant can play in the outfield on some days. I mean, I just don't know where this guy gets his at-bats. So for that reason and for that reason only, I would say to avoid him. But he is a good player. So it's not avoiding because he's not good. It's avoiding because there's just no at-bats for him. Would you say anything different to that?
No, that's true. I mean, he only had like 3 homers in the minor leagues. I mean, I'm just not really, he's going to be in limited time. He had a nice game in his very first game, and by nice game I mean 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run. So not terrible, not bad. If they want to get him playing time, then we need to trade Soler or dump Soler because he's just simply not getting it done. Is not the player I expected, nor they probably expected due to the money they gave him. So I don't know. Maybe it's time to cut with him and bring Almora up there full time. Yeah,
I don't think that day's today or this week. So I would still be holding off a little on that. But let's wrap things up with a couple questions. I mentioned I had 2 specific questions I wanted to address because I thought they were really good questions. First is from Corey Hansen at Corey Hansen 16 on Twitter. And he wants to know specifically, could you elaborate about struggling young arms like Taijuan Walker, Carlos Rodon, and Chris Archer? Thoughts on the rest of the season? Before I let you dive into that, I just want to make mention, Vince Velasquez in his start today threw 2 pitches and was immediately pulled from the game with soreness in his right arm. He has had Tommy John in the past. It is another troubling thing. I would personally look at Zach Eflin as the replacement if Velasquez is going to miss any starts. He's been pretty dominant to this point at AAA. I know Mark Appella's in the system now as well. He hasn't really done anything other than cause problems in 2 consecutive drafts. So I would look at Zach Eflin if you're looking for a Velasquez replacement or if you're just looking for some added pitching. But now I turn the tables over to you. What's your thought on these young arms who are struggling?
It's kind of it's disappointing, especially with a guy like Ty Walker and a guy like Rodon. Especially with Rodon showing out at the end of the year last year. I mean, he was dealing for sure. Let me tell you, I remember I had got traded for him or picked him up somewhere in some league, and he was throwing gems out there, man. I mean, he's got the ability. He hasn't been atrocious. I mean, I just went on my waiver wire claim right now as we speak while you were talking. And I made a claim on him. I just saw somebody drop Rodon. I'm still buying on guys like that. I'm buying on those guys if they're ever on waivers. I bought Severino when he was struggling. He failed me, and then he got hurt. So, I mean, it's not going to pay off every time, but I still think it's always worth owning these guys. I think they turn around, especially Ty Walker. And I think we're good to go. Who was the third pitcher he mentioned?
Chris Archer, who is not – he's young, but he's not – one of the he's not in the same group as they would be, but yeah, something's just off with him, man. People seem to be in agreement that he's not going to be able to turn the corner and be what he was last year, even though he just came off of a pretty filthy start. But something's going on there, and but I like to gamble a little bit. So if somebody wants to give me Archer on a deal, a nice rate, I'm still buying him. Yeah, I'm still buying on Archer too. I don't know what's going on with him, but I'm willing to hold on to him. And if somebody wants to give him away for cheap, I will certainly take him. I'm personally the young arm issue. I'm going to blame guys like you. Now, when I mentioned Zach Davies before, you say you're not intrigued by the K rate. We live in a video game era. Everybody's worried about their stats. Ks are sexy like home runs are. Everybody wants to pile them up. They're overthrowing. They know they're only going 6, maybe 7 innings, the way bullpens are run nowadays. Guys are simply throwing their arms out. And then you get a guy like Zach Davies, who's crafty, who knows at 150 pounds, he's not going to terrorize anybody with blazing fastballs. And he just finds a way to pitch. And that's why I'm going to take my chances with a guy like Davies over some of these guys like Rodon, who are having – obviously has the appeal and the pedigree, but just is lacking the control and the consistency. So I think it's just a case of just trying to do too much. And when these guys age a little and settle into their roles and accept them a little bit more, I think you'll start to see a difference. I don't know that necessarily is this season. We talked about Taijuan Walker on one of the first episodes of the season, talking about how his first 4 starts were lights out. And, wow, this was going to be a Cy Young candidate this year. And ever since that episode aired, maybe we put the kibosh on him or jinxed him or whatever. He's been horrible ever since then. So, I think these guys are just still too young to really rely on for any certainty. When it comes to pitching, I think you're looking more in that 25 to 32-year age range. And, these guys, Archer's the only one that really fits that category. And that's why I'm willing to take a gamble on him, like I was saying earlier. But let's move on to the last question. Connor Sullivan at Daily Dribble 2. Has Byron Buxton figured something out? And if Julio Urias can't go more than 6 innings, is he worth owning this season? I thought those were 2 great questions. Byron Buxton, I don't think you get compared to a guy like Mike Trout if you're not really, really, really good. I personally never saw the same thing and I don't think they really, compare to each other. But those comps were thrown out earlier in Buxton's career. He's not come close to living up to those expectations yet. Maybe he has found something in this, Act 2. We mentioned this last week, last episode, Act 2 for the baby twins, Buxton and Max Kepler. Possible. Again, I think it's, he's a guy I would keep on my roster, but I don't necessarily want to have to depend on him as my everyday starter. And Julio Urias, the same thing. The kid isn't he still a teenager? I mean, he can barely vote. Not that he'd probably vote for Trump, given, where he hails from, but
you might.
Well, then his family probably couldn't come see him pitch.
Maybe he doesn't want him.
Talk to me about Paxton and Urias.
Urias, this guy's the hottest. I mean, people are hyping this guy up like he's Jose Fernandez or something like that. But he just did. I mean, maybe he is, maybe he's not. But you like to see those superstar dudes. You like to see the Strasburg with the whatever 13, 15 Ks, whatever he had in his debut. You want to see like a Jose Fernandez just dominating from the gate. It's not going to always happen, even with the star pitchers, obviously. But you'd like to see more than you've seen from him thus far. That's for sure. He's been hit around. He's throwing a ton of walks. He went fucking 4 innings yesterday. I mean, I was an idiot and offered this guy Duvall for him the other day, even though Urias is going to probably won't even be around for the fantasy playoffs on the innings limit or whatever, even if they let him keep starting. So, like, what am I doing? I mean, right. I don't know. He's intriguing, but, like, I'm not really – I don't own him anywhere. I would swoop him up if he's still on waivers. Again, high upside K guy like the last guys we were talking about. I'm always intrigued. But, yeah, I was expecting more, and I'm still probably high on the guy. And Buxton, yeah, I think he figured something out down in AAA. And he's back looking a little bit better. And I think, he's never going to have great power, I don't think. Maybe he develops into 15, 20 max in a couple of years, but I don't know. But I would add him too. I just don't have room on any of my teams for guys like that. I'm too stacked up, you know what I'm saying? But I did try to add him, but it just didn't work out because I don't have room. But I do like the player. Pick him up.
Okay. Speaking of Urias, you made some good points that even if he's going to be on a strict innings limit, so even if he is lights out, he might get you to the playoffs, and then you're not going to go anywhere in the playoffs if that's the guy you're relying on anyway. So, if you got him, why not trade him? Why not see what you can get for him, for somebody that you're not worried about in that realm? I personally went back and looked. I DVR'd his debut. It was against the Mets. So I had it on local TV, DVR'd it. I went back and watched it again the other night just to kind of, get a second feel for it. And he really didn't look nervous, rattled, uncomfortable. He had that, mound presence that, people talk about, that it factor for, whatever, what that's worth. It just looks like he's, again, overthrowing. When you go into a stadium with 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people, that adrenaline kick in is way different than a AAA start, a AA start. Nothing is comparing to that. So he might settle down, but as the Lord mentioned, he might get you to the playoffs, and then he's going to disappear. So pick your poison. Would you rather deal him now when you can, or would you rather if he does get hot, ride him to the playoffs, and then you don't have him anyway? So
yeah. And so far, he's not even getting you to the playoffs. So far, he's just hurting you. So I'm still buying him, but I got to see something. He's got to come with a gem here, and it's like starter too. I got to see, double-digit Ks in 6 innings. I want to see him just dealing on people. I want to see him getting James Paxton on somebody. Come on.
Yeah, well, it's all I'm trying to say is I think we put the expectations too soon on too many guys. You get the rare breeds like the Trouts, who break through. Even Carlos Correa, people are a little, disappointed in him this year because people were making the case for him to be the number 1 overall pick. And now at, 21 years of age in his second full season, he's struggling a little. If you look at his numbers, he's actually still a really good shortstop. So it's not like he's horrible. He's just not putting up a 400 average and 50 home runs by the All-Star break that everybody was kind of expecting. So I think we're setting the bar too high on these guys. And a guy like Urias, let him grow, let him develop. His name is going to do more good for you this year in redraft leagues than his game will do. So take advantage of his name and see what you can get for him. I got nothing left to say. You got anybody you want to add? Should we wrap this up? Thank Raisel.
Wrap it up.
Fantasy baseball community. We missed out on a Fox report this week, but Fox Mulder, we see you. Reddit community, see you too. Fantasy Assembly, thanks as always. Jim Finch, Paul Hartman, and anybody else.
Yeah.
Leave your messages, leave your comments, follow on Twitter, follow along, like the videos, ask us some questions. We'll see you next week. Thank you.